Good evening. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today being Tuesday, October 25th, 2016. The meeting tonight is being recorded by the Peabody School Committee's recording secretary. Nice to welcome back Mary Richardson. The matters listed on our agenda are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. One thing I've been thinking of doing, and I want to do it today, is to make sure that everybody knows we have a full school committee group today. Also, of course, our superintendent, Herb Levine, our assistant superintendent, Kara Mertag, but I also want to make sure people know that Jared Stanton, our school business manager, is here as well at the meeting. And why don't we start first? If everybody could please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. Yep. So we have, I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent to welcome our guests today.
So today we're privileged to have a Student Advisory Council with us tonight, and Principal Eric Buckley. Principal Buckley will introduce the young ladies, and then we'll ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Want me to start from right here?
Yeah.
Big enough, right?
And then they can come up afterwards.
Sure.
And give them the reading.
So, our young ladies representing our senior, junior, and sophomore class are Rachel Ellis. Rachel, you can turn around to the camera if you'd like, right? Sophia Randley, Audrey Gabriel, and Ann Manning.
Great. Why don't you please come join us up here?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sophia, Rachel, who's going to start us off today?
I can start.
Okay.
Some things that have been happening at the high school is the community school moved into the high school. So they're in the D house, which is the portables on the far end. So they're able to go to class as well as take some of the electives at our school and interact with our students. And also the administration, the principal, vice principal, they're able to connect with the teachers and see them on a daily basis, which has really been helpful and beneficial. National Honor Society started this year, and they had a charity yard sale with all benefits going to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and they raised over $700. So that's gone, and they also donated to Mass General as well. And then sports, football qualified for the tournament along with volleyball, soccer, and then many sports have had their senior night celebrating their seniors in the 4 years they put into their sports. So those have been happening. Field hockey senior night is tomorrow night, and that wraps it up for the senior nights.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the senior events we have coming up. Being part of the senior class is very exciting at Peabody High right now. On September 22nd, we recently had our senior luau at Kowloon's restaurant in Saugus. It was a night of dancing and limbo and flower dresses. It was a whole bunch of fun, and I think the students really enjoyed it. I think Sophia
It was a lot of fun.
And we have going on right now a Yankee Candle fundraiser. So we've handed out catalogs and forms for students to bring home for the holidays, for their parents, just to get some little extra money for the events we have coming up later in the spring. And today we had our Student Government Day assembly, which was very exciting for the senior class. We will be able to run for student government positions this month, and then in April we will be able to hopefully join some of you for the day and kind of experience what it's like to be in PV city government. We have also installed a new security system at PVMHS. So it checks in the visitors to the school by scanning their license, and the records come up about their past and information that needs to be told, and it prints them out a badge so that everyone knows that they're a visitor. If they come into the school, they wear it on their shirt, and we just think that is great for the safety of our students. And then finally, just to talk a little bit about the Centennial Parade that just happened in our city. It was absolutely wonderful. Thank you all so much for putting it on, and I know it was so much work, and so many of the PVMHS students attended the parade as volunteers or just to watch as spectators, and I really believe it brought the community together as a whole, and we were so lucky to have it held, so thank you all for that. And I'm going to wrap it up there and pass it on to Audrey.
She thanked me, Mayor, for that.
I think everyone.
So I am a part of performing arts in Peabody High, and I have been ever since middle school. And so recently we just had our coffee house on the 21st. It was very successful. We had participants from both band and chorus and stage 1, which is our drama department. Very recently, actually, I think just this weekend, chorus and chorale hosted their patron concert, which is this concert that they put on yearly where they focus just on chorus music, and I know everyone loves it because they bring in an a cappella group from a college, and it's just a good experience for the students to learn and see what it would like to continue with music in college. Stage 1, which is our very successful drama group, they are the 2-year champions of Drama Fest, are currently working on their fall play, The Dining Room Table. I wish I could tell you more about it, but you'll just have to go and see it instead. So band recently also participated in the Centennial Parade, which Rachel mentioned, and that was such a blast for all of us to work on. We worked very hard every morning trying to get ready for marching. It was a long parade, so it was lots of preparation. And so that paid off greatly, and recently we've been working on music for upcoming winter concerts. Next, we have the class of 2019 grad requirements, and so we've newly implemented that my class, the sophomore class currently, has to have 40 hours of volunteer work in order to graduate. And so what we've tried to get students to do is to do a total of 10 hours per year, and hopefully we get more opportunities out and show people that it's really easy to get them done and they don't have to wait till last minute senior year to get it all done. As class rep, we're hoping to create some sort of reminder system to all the students so that they don't find themselves last minute senior year, I have all my credits, but I didn't get my hours in. So that's what we've been up to recently, and I'll pass it over to Anne.
So along with our school's new vocational director, the medical assisting program has been rapidly expanding. A lot more students have been signing up to take the class and really enjoying the new room that has been created for those students that opened at the end of last school year. Last weekend, many juniors and sophomores were able to take PSATs, which allowed them to experience the newly designed SAT, which they'll be taking later. Chromebooks have been given out to the majority of freshmen at our school, which allows them to have basically all of their classes online, and they take them home. They have them for the whole school year, so they're able to do their homework and everything on that. And for the grades above them who don't have the Chromebooks, there's many carts that go around to all the teachers that allow them to use them during their classroom time, and they're very popular. Many teachers have been taking advantage of using them. We also had our AP kickoff a couple weeks ago, which is a big presentation in our auditorium where all the AP students are shown statistics of our school's success in the AP programs and the benefits of taking AP classes. The school's DECA Business Club will be going on a power trip to Washington, D.C., where those students will be attending leadership conferences and different things that will help them with their DECA projects, and they'll be able to bring those experiences back to school for kids who aren't going on the trip that will benefit all the DECA students. Also, along with the Chromebooks, many aspects of our school are online based now. Google Classroom is widely used by many teachers. They use it to post assignments and homework, so the students can go on anytime and access that information, along with the MMS, which has been used for a while, that allows them to see their grades, parents to see their grades, and how they're doing in the class. And that's it.
Great. Well, Sophia, Rachel, Adrienne, thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation, but also thank you for taking on this important role, giving us updates. It's, I want you to know that it is very important for us as committee members to hear about what's taking place at the high school and get these updates. You know, oftentimes we're at meetings and we're talking about curriculum, which we're going to be speaking about shortly, new science curriculum, and we're taking on other issues. And a lot of times we don't hear what's taking place, though, in the classroom and at the individual schools. So your updates that you provide us are very important for us to hear, and you know, it's always wonderful to hear the great things that all of you are doing and what's going on in the school. We're always bragging about what a great student body we have and the great work that's taking place, and it's very gratifying for us to all hear about the great work that's going on. So looking forward to future updates from all of you, and you know, we're here as a group trying to do what's best for the students at all times, and it's great to see that things are working in such a positive way. So thank you so much. Anybody have any specific questions or comments at this point? Mrs. Dunn.
You know what?
I knew I was just waiting.
Thank you, that was a great presentation. My question for you is, do your classmates know that you are on the student advisory board? And do they know what you do?
Some of my classmates know that I am on the student advisory board, and a lot of times they'll venture to me like, oh, hey, could you bring this up to Mr. Buckley and Ms. Maniatis? How about talking about that? And when we get together at meetings, we really do discuss the topics that the students advocate for, because we are student representatives and we want to make sure that everything that they want to get done at PBMHS is happening.
Very good. And I know, Rachel, you've been on for a while, so you know, but for the newer members, make sure that your classmates know what service you're providing to the school, because they will come to rely on you as their liaison to Mr. Buckley and to Ms. Maniatis, and you can have a lot of really good conversations with your classmates about the things that they're concerned about at the school, especially if they're studying different things than you are, or they're not necessarily following the same path through school. And you do have a very important job, and we thank you for that.
Okay, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Like the rest of them had said, thank you for all the updates. You know, there's some things that we don't hear about, and I appreciate it. So I have one question that's a little bit off. How is being able to use your cell phones in school going for you this year?
It's going really well. It's been really a nice resource. You can have, a lot of the teachers have Google Classroom, so you can get the app on your phone, so we can easily access documents and stuff in class. So that's been really helpful.
I know for a lot of my friends and I, we use this app called Quizlet on our phones. Every period before a test or something, we're studying together, and it's just really nice to be able to have access to our phones now, especially during lunch, to be able to see what's going on, updating emails and all that.
Yeah, I've heard of the Quizlet. Yeah,
Yeah.
John uses that one. Mr. Buckley, are you on the same page as the students? Is it going well?
Yeah. I have a phone. Yeah, no, this group is great. Just to jump in. You know, just so, I don't know if all the newer members know, this board and this advisory is really it's nice for myself and Mrs. Maniatis too, because in the day-to-day, I think like the mayor just said, you know, you get lost in that a little bit. And when they come in, I say, okay, what's going on? And we go for about an hour straight. And I'll cue in here and there a little bit, but a lot of times it's just me listening and Mrs. Maniatis, and it's nice to hear positive things. The Chromebooks have really worked out well. You know, you see them in the cafeteria when you walk through, kids are using them. You go by classrooms, you see them all open. So there's a lot of good things going on. And for the sophomores, juniors, and seniors, having their phones or the Chromebook cards, which at first when we got those, you know, you'd sign them out. They'd be available a period here or there. They're sold out now. So every period they're being used, they're all being used. So it's really been a huge advancement in a short amount of time. So I'm very proud of it.
Great. Great, again, thank you so much. This is wonderful. Looking forward to future updates.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. And I did want to mention, we also have our state representative, City Councilor Tom Walsh here. And Tom, thank you for being here. It's continuing to support our school department and the school committee, so thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I just want you kids to know that when you mentioned whatever app you mentioned, the mayor said, what's it called? And I looked at Karen and said, what's that? So there is a generational gap. I don't know what
Wait
it
a
was.
minute, I'm not in your generation. Let's make sure we're very clear here.
I'm not sure that anybody in this room is in my generation. But thank you, kids. And I did just want to say, I get an opportunity to visit the high school on a regular basis. And I've got to tell you, the greatest thing about any school system is always its kids. We have a fabulous staff. We have great people who work with and for the school district. But the primary advantage that we have is the kids in Peabody, and you're a great representative group of that, so thank you for everything that you do.
Well said, thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Levine. We have another special guest today.
We do. I'm going to have Assistant Superintendent Murtagh introduce our guest from McGraw-Hill. We do have two teachers, science teachers, who are on their way. They said they could be here about 7:30. So we'll ask Laurie to give her presentation and maybe field some questions. And when our teachers who actually participated in this group process of choosing McGraw-Hill, when they get here, they will participate as well. So, Karen, want to introduce?
Sure. We are very fortunate to have Laurie Reynolds here from McGraw-Hill tonight, and she is our publishing representative, and it has been such a cohesive and wonderful working relationship with the teachers and Laurie and myself. It's been such a team effort, and tonight I'm very happy to have Mr. Heenan here, who is the 7th grade housemaster, and he also oversees with Mr. Busey the science department. So Mr. Heenan's here as well, and Ms. Orlando and Ms. Dean are coming, and Mr. Orlando is the facilitator with, in science in the science department. So they will be coming shortly, as Dr. Levine said, but I'm going to introduce Laurie now to just field some questions and to tell about our process and how we chose McGraw-Hill for the middle school science curriculum resource.
Do you need a microphone? You can sit right here.
Yeah,
Whatever you
stay
want.
right there.
Wherever you want.
I know, those kids are going to be a hard act to follow.
They sure.
They were pretty impressive. So, hi everyone. My name is Laurie Reynolds. I'm the publishing representative with McGraw-Hill. I want to thank you for having me in tonight. As Kara said, I've been working with the district for, actually it's almost going on a year now. So Kara had contacted me probably early fall, maybe around this time last year, and had put together a committee. So she had brought in, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how many publishers, but she brought in quite a few, and we all came in, we did our presentations. The committee was made up of, it was high school teachers, middle school teachers, it was actually a almost to K-12, pre-K-12. McGraw-Hill pre-K to 5 did not make the cut, but 6-8 did. So we went through that series of presentations, we met with the teachers, we were called back after they narrowed it down. We did come back and present it again, and then Karen and I worked through sort of the details of what the partnership would entail. So I've been working very closely with Bobby. I'll tell you a little bit just about the program in general, just so you have a little bit of an idea. As I'm sure you know, the science frameworks have changed in the past year, and Massachusetts has gone away a little bit from the national standards. And so McGraw-Hill decided probably early in the fall last year that a national program would fit in Massachusetts. So we created a Massachusetts-specific science program for grades 6, 7, and 8, and it's what Peabody ultimately chose. It has a robust online component, so at the middle school where you're fortunate enough to have this beautiful building and one-to-one, there's a complete online component. So every student has access to an ebook as well as all the online resources. It can be used with Google Classroom, and they also have class sets of books in the classroom, which Bobby is going to bring in. Unfortunately, I didn't have any samples available to bring in, but when Miss Orlando comes, she said that she would bring samples just so that you could see, and I will leave you a couple of documents that have some information. But essentially, the students have their own online book as well as a class set of books in school. So we've also put together, Karen and I worked together to put together a professional development plan, because as we know, a program is really only as good as what you can do and teach the, kind of work within and partner and really develop the teachers and what they can do with the program. So we really customized it, and we're in Peabody every month, which is really not a typical professional development plan. But with the new school and the one-to-one, we felt, Karen and I especially, that it would be very beneficial to everyone if we could come in and make sure that the teachers and the students were comfortable with the technology as well as the frameworks are very different. A lot of schools are not used to being integrated. Because the frameworks are written in an integrated fashion, the grade specific helped that teacher that was a little bit unsure, because it really allowed them to sort of have a guide, still bring in their individual, plans and kind of how they want to teach science, but give them a guide to really help them understand and kind of go through those frameworks. And everything is going very smoothly. We've been in here quite a few times. We have another full day professional development coming up on election day. So we'll be in with the science. Like I said, Bobby Orlando has really taken the reins as well. She and I have communicated. We built all the online classrooms for the teachers. So every student has a login and a password that they can go in at any time and use, whether at school or at home. If they do not have internet access at home, the nice part about our program is there's an app that they can download when they're in the school, and it can be used offline at home. They do not need internet access to access their book. So are there any questions? Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your presentation. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
What year are you, is this set currently in? Is it the first year? Are we the first ones to use it?
No, so there were actually quite a few. So you're one of the first districts. This is the first year that it's been rolled out. There are many districts within Massachusetts. I'm happy to email you a list of the districts that are using it currently, but anyone that is using it now is in the first year. It is built on the trusted national content of sort of our national plans, however, written to Massachusetts.
Okay, so I guess my other questions won't have much relevance, because I wanted to know what type of results we've had in regards to having seen any type of MCAS results or anything like that. But
It'll be moving forward. And the nice part about the program too is it does have a robust online assessment. So what you're going to see is you'll now be able to collect a lot more data just from everyday work that they're doing through e-assessment. So it will actually provide them. So I would say by the end of the year, you'll have a good amount of data and I know that Bobby Orlando is working hard on sort of keeping track of.
do you have any idea off the top of your head what other school districts are?
Yep, Situate, Holliston, trying to think of the ones that I've just worked with recently. There's so many.
And they're all starting?
Yes, they all implemented this year, yes, because essentially the Massachusetts book was not available until the spring of last year. So it came out in the spring of last year, and it was implemented in the fall in any district. But there are many, many districts. Like I said, I'm happy to provide you with a full list.
So Peabody and including those other districts will be the first ones to collect any type of data and see any type of results with this new program, basically?
With the new standards, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rosico?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
How do Massachusetts framework and curriculum differ from national?
So national standards essentially did not give, Massachusetts recommended integrated. National, you do not need to go integrated. They offer a layered approach, which is going to be Earth, Life, Physical, as well as an integrated pathway. They didn't sort of say which pathway to choose. They just said that you could essentially do either one. Massachusetts, really the way that it's written, although you do not have to go that way, they essentially said, this is sort of the way we recommend. Whether you choose it or not, the test is still in 8th grade, so you don't necessarily have to switch to the integrated. The national standards are a little heavier I should say Massachusetts is heavier on engineering and modeling. The national standards do not have as much engineering and modeling. So what we had to do, as well as technology, I should add. So what we had to do was we had to beef up the chapters outside of the national program. The other thing is the order of the national programs. If we tried to fit a national program into a Massachusetts framework program, you would essentially need all 3 books to teach in 1 grade level. Because of the way that they mixed around the standards, there was no way to fit a national program into the Massachusetts framework. So what we did is we worked with John Papadonis, who actually has been in the district. He's done professional development for your teachers, and we essentially took him and Dave Lyons, another colleague of his, and we essentially gave them our national program and asked them to go through and really decide what in Massachusetts would be relevant and what in looking in these frameworks do we really need to add and different things we need to do. They were really invaluable in this experience because they really told us and they helped us build, this is the document that I'll leave you, but this is essentially the table of contents. And they went through, and as you go through any of the online pieces of the book, every math standard is written and every chapter, lesson, and unit. So the teacher really knows exactly what they're teaching. So really just having Massachusetts people be the experts on how we decided and made this program really made it very unique to sort of Massachusetts science options. So, and it does allow for a lot of, there's a lot of hands-on activities, there's a lot of modeling activities, there's a lot of collaboration. So it's really not just a textbook anymore, it's really a full online resource with a lot of interactivity in it.
Through the chair. Now, we're just talking about the middle school program currently.
Correct.
How does that articulate both from the elementary school level moving up to your level, and how does your level move forward to the high school level?
So you're not actually using McGraw-Hill High School level, so I don't know.
No, it's Pearson.
Yes, so I believe they're coming next weekend. So yeah, so essentially, as long as you're written and using to the standards, any program is going to fit. The middle school, based on the national and the Massachusetts frameworks, the biggest shift was in middle school. So essentially, no matter what you choose, K-5 and 9 to 12 is not going to be as much of a, it's not going to be as off as it would have been in the middle school, because that's where most of the shifts were within the Massachusetts frameworks. Did you want to, please?
We taught, everybody had their area of expertise, whether it be like physical or earth science. Now it's all integrated. They teach all of it now. So that's the integration piece of it. And Bobby and Becky can talk about that, but I got some great feedback saying we're really enjoying that because they get to spiral. So they just don't see one and done. They spiral throughout the year. So
does that same spiral happen at the 5th grade level moving into 6th grade?
Depending on what area of content you're teaching at that time. But yes, because the standards overlap. It's more depth and breadth as you go up. So it's foundational and then more in depth.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. This is Miss Orlando. She is our science curriculum, I almost called you curriculum coordinator, but facilitator in the middle school. And this is Becky Dean. She's our 7th grade science teacher. I almost said 8th, but 7th grade science teacher. So, do you want to
Sure.
talk for a few minutes about what's going on?
So I guess I'll start with how we came upon picking McGraw-Hill. We had a district-wide committee. Thanks. We had a district-wide committee who was the elementary, the middle, and the high school. We met at the Kylie about, 4 or 5 times throughout last year. We had a slew of companies come and present their materials. And the middle school really liked Pearson and McGraw-Hill. And we were leaning towards Pearson because they had the science frameworks recently changed this year. We just got new frameworks. So, sorry, we were late. So we we're leaning towards Pearson because of that, but everyone really liked McGraw-Hill for every other reason. And then McGraw-Hill came up with the spiraled Massachusetts textbook.
Oh yeah, I should have said that. When we first presented, it was our national program. Yes, so that we didn't, our first presentation did not have the Mass specific. I forgot about that.
Yes,
Thank
so the committee decided between those two when we brought it back to the middle school teachers, and they decided unanimously that McGraw-Hill, we liked the one-to-one aspect is just huge for this. We're obviously a one-to-one school, and having the ability to pull the books up online, the pictures, there's interactive labs,
Brain pop.
the brain pop, there's Paige Keeley probes. It was unanimous. All the science teachers wanted McGraw-Hill over Pearson. So we were really excited to be able to purchase any new materials. And it's really helped us tremendously in moving forward with the new curriculum. Just real quick, I went to a DSAC meeting with Karen McGovern last week, and there were probably about 6 or 7 districts there, and the first activity was, here's a dirt road, here's a gravel road, a paved road, and a highway. Now, where are you? Just take a minute to think about where are you in your school in relation to these, in the new standards to these roads. And out of those 6, 7 districts, we were the only one who picked highway. And we really have McGraw-Hill to thank for that, because they have, it's been kind of our backbone, because a new curriculum is really difficult with that. And using the old books, it would have been much more challenging than it already is. I have a couple things really quick. I just got, and I'll pass, I have these for all of you to, student feedback. I just asked a couple of students to make some comments, and let's see. This student said it's great because it's online. They don't have to carry the big book around. Also, a lot of students say they don't lose it, so they don't leave it at home. A lot of kids talked about how pages rip easily, and they like that. They don't have to worry about that. And they also talk about how they like having these in the classroom. A lot of kids said that as well. So they have both versions. They really like how you can highlight the online text and write on the online text. I thought this was kind of funny that they talked about the books have people in modern clothing. So I'm looking at people like clothing from the 70s, you know, so I thought that was kind of funny that they could relate more to the people.
What's the matter with that?
It eventually comes back around anyway.
That's so true.
I think the Learn Smart, this person talked about the Learn Smart. It highlights what they need to know. It helps them check with their comprehension. It prompts them to answer questions based on what they read. And the kids just really, and like I said, I'll leave these with you to look at. I also have some feedback from 8th grade teachers, Jen O'Masta and Matt Mole, who wanted to be here, but they couldn't. They were commenting on the frameworks and said that the turnover from the old curriculum to the new is going very well. McGraw-Hill so far is a really good resource. Let's see. It's really exciting that we're having students, for the first time we're spiraling, so we're having students there. The 8th grade teachers are really able to see what students have learned in 6th and 7th grade, and it's exciting to see them building on those topics. The online textbook, the one-to-one initiative, are complementing the new curriculum. For example, in Gemini today, students use Chromebooks to research images taken by the Hubble telescope of various galaxies and use these images to describe and classify galaxies according to the information in the online text. In Orion today, students used a McGraw-Hill suggested electronic image of the sun to make observations and to compare the sun to other stars. So they're using the online resource, and you know, the one-to-one initiative has just been fabulous in the online use of the books. So thank you all.
Mr. Amico, I think you have a question.
I had a question regarding, could be for anyone there, regarding the data for teachers. It is standard specific, so if students don't meet the standard, are there reteaching tools to help teachers, focus on a particular standard that might be troublesome for students?
There are, and so you mentioned very briefly, Ms. Orlando, LearnSmart. So there's actually many ways that you could remediate. LearnSmart's probably the most powerful tool. Essentially, it takes your ebook and makes it a smart book. What that means is, and this has been done at higher ed for years, McGraw-Hill just pushed it down into 6th grade. So now we now have smart books from grades 6 to 12 instead of just in the higher ed learning field. So what LearnSmart does is essentially it has the student read the text, it offers questions, and based on not only if they know it or don't know it, it's based on their confidence level and time, whether they've gone back into the text to research that question to answer it. So it really collects a lot of data and finds out what they're most likely to forget. Based on that information, it changes what they have to read. So the content could be in yellow, but when they answer the questions, it'll go to green. So they only need to read what's in green. They don't have to read the rest of the content. So it really focuses and gives them ways to really kind of get that standard. And then also within that assessment tool, you can actually pull different types of reports by standards. You can compare your classes, you can compare students, you can compare different things to really kind of go in and really remediate and really help those students. So that is another huge resource.
And just to piggyback, the students' version is the LearnSmart. It's great because you don't have to read all the fluff in between the important information that you need to know. The questions also help with checking your comprehension to make sure you're picking up information, you aren't just glazing over the reading. So that's
Mr. Amico, you have a
Yeah, right.
From a 12-year-old's point
I
of
just
view.
had a quick follow-up. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Sure.
Anything on Lexile levels?
Yes, so I can certainly send you all the Lexile. So yeah, we do have all sorts of information on Lexile. They're pretty similar in all grade levels. The 8th grade book is a little bit higher, but they're all pretty similar. There also are, it's called Reading Essentials, and then there's a reading coach that the students can use too. That's essentially the book 2 to 3 grade levels below. So those are worksheets that the teachers can pull, and they can actually use those with the students to make sure that even those lower level students are learning. They can also customize just about everything within there to sort of send their own, whether they want to do homework differently or a quiz or a test. So they really have a lot of resources to really teach every student.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Olympio and then Mrs. Dunn.
I got it, Herb.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you taking over?
It's all good.
Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Updates, is it updated on the content online? Is it updated annually or is it monthly or?
So the content is actually updated for the life of your adoption. So you adopted for 6 years. So anything that changes within the online will be updated. So for example, certain things could change within content or we add more resources. Those are all automatically pushed out, and sometimes the teachers will receive actually a little notice when they log into their account, and it'll actually say sometimes they'll move something or they'll add something, and they are notified. But yeah, everything is essentially updated real time when they need to update it.
And then would there be like supplements to the textbooks and things like that?
Yeah, essentially all of that, anything that's updated, it would be online.
Okay.
So all of the online would be it, would essentially. So the textbook won't change because it's a hard copy.
Right.
However, anything online would change.
Okay.
And yeah, that would be given, and there's no charge for any additional.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank all of you. My question can go to any one of you that wants to answer. You were explaining how it's a very hands-on program, and I'm wondering, do we have all of the tools that you need in our new classrooms, because we're really excited about being able to use them for, experiments and this, when you do a demonstration, are we all set for all of that in conjunction with whatever you're doing through the textbook?
Last year, we looked very closely at what supplies to buy, and Bobby spent thousands of hours putting together this incredibly comprehensive list Now, we had not taught the new curriculum yet, and as we go through it, there's labs that we haven't done before, but right now we feel that we're really well supplied, but we are kind of looking through. The McGraw-Hill books, every section has kind of a mini lab, like a very short 20-minute hands-on thing, and then it'll have a larger lab. We really think that they're good. As we're going forward, we're kind of identifying things that we might not have equipment for and how we can resource it. We're also looking at what came over from the old school that we didn't even really know that we had access to and how we could use that in these new labs. So it's kind of time will tell. As we go through this new curriculum, we'll have good ideas for hands-on ways to teach these state standards that we haven't even had to teach before. So I don't know if that answers it.
Karen, did you want to elaborate?
Okay, did you? Yeah, I just wanted to say that as we continue on and as the teachers get more comfortable with the resources, they're experts in their field, we will continue to refine and update our curriculum maps as we go. So we'll share those.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dunn, are you finished?
Yes.
Just one question reverting back to something that Mr. Olympio had mentioned. You mentioned this curriculum we have for 6 years. Is there a price tag associated with upgrades annually, or is this a flat fee for the 6 years?
No, you have paid for it for 6 years. There's no additional charge.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Nope.
Ms. Lockwood.
Thank you. How refreshing and exciting this presentation has been. Thank you all for coming here tonight and describing what the new frameworks are to us, showing us the materials that our students are learning, how confident everyone on the other side of that camera must be in this textbook, in our staff. I know that this was a large committee that studied the new frameworks and the materials that we were going to use to teach our students. We spent a lot of time doing it. I thank you for your time and the effort that you put forward. It is clear how passionate you are about this text, about teaching our students the material and the way that the new frameworks allow you to. I think it's a huge improvement in the science curriculum. I've been on this board 7 years. We haven't had this much conversation about science curriculum collectively in the 7 years I've been here. So I'm extremely excited about this new textbook, about the new frameworks that are here in place in Massachusetts, and just in your enthusiasm in the way you're taking your jobs seriously and how much you clearly care about our students. I want to also thank Ms. Murtagh for showing the leadership that she did in leading this group, in bringing in the number of providers to really give our staff and students an opportunity to choose the best textbook available in light of the new frameworks that were coming online. So great job, thank you. I want to thank the mayor for providing the resources outside of our budget to allow for our students and our staff that have these materials, so I want to thank you for that.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to receive whatever materials for
Second.
And Kara's also going to email these documents to the each. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
It's so nice to meet you. Thank you. So nice to meet you. Thanks so much. Nice to meet you.
Laura, thank you.
Okay, we can go back to the regular agenda, and we have approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the October 18, 2016 regular school committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Heard the motion by Mr. Hockman for approval of the October 18, 2016 regular school committee meeting minutes, seconded by Mr. Rosignol. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Rosignol?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs.
Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Thank you. Next item, approval of bills. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant A number 3227 dated October 25th in the amount of $1,163,856.36, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. Heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant A, number 3227, seconded by Mr. Rossignol. Roll call vote. Excuse me, on the motion, Mr. Hoffman.
I see Mrs. Carpenter is looking at the warrant as we're speaking. We typically get these in our packets, and I don't question why we don't. My question is to our business manager, is there anything in these warrants that requires a vote this evening?
No, not I believe so, nothing
Would you-
other than regular business.
Would you be comfortable if we postpone this vote to our next regular meeting to give us an opportunity to review the warrant?
The only reason I would be hesitant is because we owe a lot to vendors that we're calling and looking for funds.
Thank you.
So on that point, through the
Mrs.
chair,
Carpenter?
am I the only one who has a copy of it right now?
Yeah.
Okay, I did review it, so if we could postpone maybe for a minute and let everybody look at it,
Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute break?
is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll share this one. I was reviewing it, so, okay.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, we will resume the meeting. There's a motion on the floor to approve warrant A, number 3227. Any comments or questions on warrant A? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Rossignol?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant 3228 dated, is that October 20th? A different date? October 20th, in the amount of $2,385,798.93, subject to audit.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant B, number 3228, seconded by Mr. Rossignol. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Rossignol?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item is continued business. First item is MSBA Higgins project. Mrs. Dunn, anything to report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We held our monthly meeting this past week on Thursday. Very informative meeting about the two phases of the school. First, with the new building, what is occurring now is the punch list. And it is being rigorously examined. A lot of the systems in the school are new. And as people use things here in the building, there are reports being generated about, any difficulties noted. Everything is still, of course, under warranty, and a lot of the systems are being adjusted. One thing that was really very interesting was that we had several warm days and then a couple of cold days, and it was so nice to hear that on the cold days the heat came on in the building, and on the hot days the coolants worked. Because so many times people have to wait for a date definite when you're going to switch from heat to cooling, and in this building, it's just automatic. So they have had some things to work out with the cooling, and that is being taken care of by the vendor. They're in the building quite often, and they are monitoring all of this to make sure that everything does work. Nothing will be accepted until we know that it is all up to snuff 100%. They have a really rigorous record-keeping system that we will be inheriting, which is really very good because it's going to tell us about all the systems in the building, all of everything, furniture, lockers, everything. There have been a few instances with some locks on the lockers that had some problems with it. It's a manufacturer's defect. And what is going to happen is, throughout this year, those will be taken care of, but in the summer, the manufacturer of Master Locks is going to come in and replace every lock in the building on the lockers, which is great. And then, of course, that is going to generate a new time frame for warranty on that. And as far as the second phase, where the fields will be going, there was a great discussion about the work that's going on there. They are, of course, everyone knows the building is now gone, but there is still some remnant of the old Higgins underground. And as they dig up old pipes, old cement foundation, they're, of course, working on recycling or disposing properly if it's considered hazardous. And it isn't extensive, but it is something that they had not anticipated. So we are still on track for our timeline. However, the completion for much of the underground and of all of the removal of the building has been extended by 2 weeks. And weather holding, it will be mid-November as opposed to the end of October. So everyone, keep your fingers crossed for some good weather. They're hoping that they'll be able to continue on this track and be able to get the surface ready for seeding. And there are some decisions to be made on what to do as far as putting in sod versus seed. The drainage is great, and it's working. It worked very well the other night, Friday night. On this site, the drainage works perfectly. And on the other site, there will be drainage if anybody is concerned about some of the mud that washed down the hill. It wasn't very much. It looked much worse than it really was. And that was just because of the construction going on the other side of the old road. But things are proceeding very well. So our next meeting will be November 17th, Thursday, November 17th.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Our next item is for kids only before and after school program updates. Anything to report?
Just a quick update. Before the Bell program, I spoke with the coordinator yesterday, and they are delivering the flyers and the applications over the next day or two to all 5 schools that will have the program at this point. So we're moving along, and we should, within the next week or two, have a really good idea as to how many kids and how many staff will be staffing that program. So I think at the next school committee meeting, I'll be able to give you a much firmer report on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rosino?
Thank you. Through the chair, are you still looking at a November 1st start date?
I would think that that's a little too early. I think that probably we're looking now toward the end of the first week of November, possibly even November 15th, because we're still looking at staff.
I'm sorry, through the chair. How close are you to the required staff?
We had 10 is the magic number at this point. We had 4. I don't know how many they've added since because I didn't ask that question. I can find that out for you.
That's great.
Sure.
Thank you. Next item, public participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come forward and speak? The microphone is open. And now we will go to superintendent's report. Dr. Levine?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to apologize to Tom for forgetting that he becomes chair at the table when the mayor's away. I apologize. You know that I try to fill a vacuum wherever it is, and there was no vacuum there, so my apologies to you. The Burke shades are in, and they are beautiful. For anybody who has not seen them, they are wonderful shades. They do the work that they're supposed to do, and Lacey Beacott sent out a very nice thank you note today, which talked about what those shades provide, not only safety, but blockage from the sun, ability to use more technology, Just a wonderful addition. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to the school committee, and thank you to Tim Healy and everybody that had anything to do with the installing of those shades. We really appreciate it. And so do the teachers and kids at the school. Our medical technology program, which was mentioned tonight by one of our students from the high school, received its final certification as an approved Chapter 74 program. You will get a copy of the letter in your next packet. But that just came yesterday, and we're very excited about that because it says a lot about the work that has been done by the teacher, the folks at the high school, the kids who were so enthusiastic about the program, the work of Tim Healy and the crew that made a new space out of almost nothing. It was storage and wasted space. It's now, for those of you who haven't been there, I urge you to take a look at the program in action. It's terrific. So we're very excited about that. And of course, the Peabody School District, now that it's a certified Chapter 74 program, gets reimbursed for every kid that's in that program. So that's very exciting for all of us. In your packet, you have two reports. Both were commissioned in 2014. One took a look at the special education program at the high school. The other took a look at the autistic program at the Brown and some other services at the Brown. The one that was done that took a look at the Brown was done in a typically professional manner for our profession. It was there was research, there was comment, there were recommendations, there were accommodations, and it's backed up by data. The second one that was done, I'm a little more critical of because it really wasn't backed up by data. The N was extremely small, and although there was still some recommendations that I think that we've already acted upon that were reasonable. So it's there for you to look at. It's been around, it's been finished since I would say the winter of 2015, maybe a little before that. And I thought that it was important for both of them to see the light of day because they are public documents. So read through it at your leisure, and John, through the chair.
Mr. Olympio?
Did it again.
Through the chair. Dr. Levine, how often do we have these evaluations? Because I read both reports, and you're correct, the Brown evaluation was a little bit more scientific and backed up by some facts, and the high school study just almost seemed like just one man's opinion.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it wound up to be. And I don't want to be publicly critical. I would just say that I put a little more stock in what came out of the Brown report than I do out of the high school report. We don't, to be honest with you, the district spent $10,000 on the Brown report and almost $5,000 on the high school report. So there was $15,000 spent there. Probably it's appropriate to have outside eyes look at some of the things that you do now and again. But we probably could have and did come to many of the same conclusions with internal study. But that's okay. We do this once in a while. You wouldn't do this again for 10 years. You wouldn't even think about it. We now have an aggressive director of special education who is coming to many of the conclusions that we need to come to in order to improve our program, move forward, and become more efficient. So I think that we're going to let her do her job, and I don't think we need to worry much about outside eyes again for a long time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Levine, one of my first questions was, do we know what generated the request for those reports? Were these done in response to any type of a request, or was it just in the course of business? And actually, just as an aside, I agree with Mr. Olympio. It's almost like the one was examining programs, was very detailed about the program. The other was more about personnel. And it was, they were both different. I can see some good things in both of them, going forward. It's information is always useful. but it made me wonder why they were done in the first place.
I don't know the answer to that. As you know, they were done under a different superintendent, and I'm certain that he had his reasons, but I don't know what those reasons are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rosenbaum?
Thank you. Through the chair, Dr. Dean, thank you for this information. As you mentioned, this was done back in 2014, and a lot of things have happened between now and then. Could you highlight the things that we have improved on and give us a copy of that? And I agree with my colleagues regarding the Brown School assessment of our programs versus the high school assessment or opinion. But either way, any information that you could provide us of the things that even you found critical that they brought up that have now changed since then, I think would be helpful. And I know, being on the education subcommittee, we have a meeting coming up with special education parents, and I think that information might be great for them to not only have the reports, but to have the improvement that we've made since these reports.
Through the chair, I'd be happy to do that. Most of the improvements you have actually funded as a school committee, because most of the improvements are in personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenbaum. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Mr. Rosenbaum to bring up that we will take these reports and discuss them in a special education subcommittee meeting in the near future. I would like to point out that there are, and let's start out by saying Mr. Schechtman's analysis of what's going on in special education programs at the high school is at times offensive, extremely unprofessional, and however, he does make some valid points, and these points are, there's some crossover in the recommendations from Mr. Schechtman as well as Ms. Everett at the Brown School report, and I think Mr. Schechtman's conclusory statement that where he talks about the biggest issue that needs to be resolved is the chronic turnover of the administrator of special education position here at Peabody, and we have had quite a bit of turnover in that position. He doesn't articulate in any way why that is or provide any data or background as to why that's occurring, where Ms. Everett does talk about not the special educator administrative position specifically, but about the amount of time and paperwork that is required of a special education teacher and a special education administrator in order to properly evaluate what's going on with a particular student, provide programs or clear goals in IEP, communicate those goals to both parents, special education staff, non-special education teachers, and administrators, and the lack of, or the, not the lack of, but the need for some resources to go along with staff that we currently have in the special education department. And I suspect that my conversations or our conversations in subcommittee are going to lead to some budgetary recommendations that will hopefully keep this energetic, creative, and terrific special education director that we currently have with the proper support levels, with people who are on her team also with proper support levels, and enable them to function in a better way and not have the kind of burnout that has taken place. So we will go through all that. I do appreciate the fact that the reports have been disseminated to us. We've had an opportunity to read them. They are available to the public. They are available to anyone out there that wishes to get the reports or read the reports. Perhaps they can be posted on our website so that they're readily accessible to everyone that wishes to read it. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, turn it back to you, Dr. Peabody.
Thank you. Just to follow up on what Mr. Hockman said, just briefly, that support could go anywhere from secretarial help at high school, which they don't presently have, to an assistant director of special education for a school district this size. So it runs the gamut, and I'm pleased that you'll be taking that up and making recommendations.
If I may, by way of follow-up, I know that this superintendent did have on a priority list an assistant to the special education director during our last budget session, and we as a board, although the mayor has been extremely generous and kind with funds to the school department since he's been mayor, we do ultimately wind up with some difficult decisions at the end of the process, and that was one of the difficult decisions I think we all felt towards the end. But it's I guess refreshing to see an independent third party make an evaluation that is in line with the superintendent's recommendation, and perhaps give us a little more initiative as we consider budget discussions in the spring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just an alert that the MSBA was here for a couple of days evaluating our facilities. The reason that they do that is to update their own data. It was a very positive visit, and I did get to spend some time with the MSBA at the center school, and we talked a great deal about the needs of that building. I want to announce that Phil Sheridan has been named Athletic Director of the Year for District A. Congratulations to Phil, who takes on many, many roles in our district, from physical education to sports, to being the sexual harassment officer, the Title IX officer, and does a lot of other things for us. He does a fabulous job, he always has. He works very hard, and for him to be recognized by his peers, I think is appropriate, and congratulations to Phil. He does an awful lot for this district. Be happy to do that. And lastly, last year, I brought to you, to this table, the choice between MCAS and PARC. Not every superintendent did that. I felt that that choice was more toward policy than not, using the Tom Brady adage. So I thought bringing it to you was appropriate. You eventually voted against my recommendation. You chose MCAS rather than PARC, which is fine. Not really, but it's fine. And this year, we do not have that choice. This year, the state has mandated that we will all take statewide MCAS 2.0. There is no choice between MCAS and PARC. It is all MCAS 2.0. The choice became a directive from the Commissioner's Office to all superintendents within the last couple of weeks to determine whether or not your district would take MCAS 2.0 this year, 2016-17, either online or paper. I felt that that was operational. I did not bring it to this table, nor would I in the future, unless you voted and mandated it. I think that would be wrong-headed, however. This is an operational procedure as to how we implement the choice that, for example, you made, MCAS 2.0, MCAS rather, if you had that choice. The choice that I had was to get very quickly my people together, and we had a couple of meetings about this, and the Wednesday before the Friday that the decision had to be made and sent into the Department of Education, I chose, through the good work of many people, including our techie boys and Kara and a whole bunch of other folks, the principals, we determined that we could take this strictly by and through technology. The advantages are, and I'll tell you how in a minute, the advantages are that, number one, we're held harmless, so that whatever we are now, we will be next year, no matter how the kids perform on the computer. Number two, in 17-18, everybody has to take it through technology, and technology only. So there will be no choice. This gives our kids a year to be able to practice without any disadvantages. They may not do well. There will be a lot of kids who have trouble taking a standardized test like this online for the first time. It's also going to give us as a district time to work out the difficulties that we may have regarding our own equipment and online procedures and capabilities when our kids take this test in the spring through computers. Now, what I did was, through the generosity and goodwill of the mayor, who gave us an awful lot of technology money in his capital plan this year, I was able to freeze dollars in the technology budget at the start of the year. Our people were able to do what they needed to do with less money because the mayor was so generous with us through the process of the capital funding. We looked at how many computers, Chromebooks we would need in order to pull this off. We needed 2 cots at the Burke. These are Chromebook cots of 30. 2 cots at the Burke, 1 cot at the West, 1 at the McCarthy, 2 at the Center, 2 at the Brown, 3 at the Carroll, 2 at the South, and 1 at the Welch. In addition to what we already have, in order to service all the kids that were going to be taking MCAS 2.0 online, we therefore have ordered nearly 400 Chromebooks to be distributed throughout the school system. The high school and the middle school, of course, don't count because the middle school has everything it needs, and the high school is not taking it online yet. There is no high school online test yet. We did our homework. We are able to lease over 4 years all of these carts at less than $25,000 a year. I had that money in the budget. It's a relatively small amount of money to get this many Chromebooks and be able to distribute them throughout the schools. And of course, this isn't the only thing that they'll be used for. The Chromebooks will then be used after testing for everything that schools use Chromebooks for. So for me, it was a no-brainer to go this way because we're going to have to do it anyway. We might as well do it now and reap the benefit of being able to practice this test without disadvantage. Order all the Chromebooks that we need to order, have them there, and work out the problems that we need to work out, if there are any, and I'm sure there will be, in a year where we're held harmless. So I was asked to put this on the agenda and explain the choice, and there it is.
Thank you, Dr. Levine. Mr. Rosignol.
Thank you. I'm going to try to, and I'm sure I'm not going to do it justice, channel my inner Dave McGeaney. So roughly how much money are you spending on one standardized test through technology?
I don't have that figure.
Rough estimate. Just to upgrade our software, our bandwidth, all for this test. Like you had just mentioned, you're changing from COTS, which you thought we needed as a district, to Chromebooks just for this test. All of the technology changes that you're taking away from our district just so that you can implement what we need for this test.
Well, I don't think that's a fair assessment of what's happening. We were going to have these Chromebooks anyway. We're just getting them a year earlier than we are going to be mandated to have them. So, and as far as the money is concerned, if this is the question that you're asking, Tom, and excuse me if I'm not answering it right, the money that I froze in technology, I'm now allowing $25,000 of that money to be used. That other money is still there. So,
yeah, so we're in the ballpark. So that $25,000 you're allocating for technology just basically for this test.
well, no, because it's the impetus is the test.
Right.
But the usage of the Chromebooks after...
Absolutely, we can use it for other things. Absolutely.
Okay.
So going back a year, this board, and I think wisely, chose to do MCAS because it was a standardized test that we already know and appreciate some of its validity. Some of it, I think, it doesn't matter, I think. But it's at least a valid test. So now, in the state's ultimate wisdom, we are moving to basically PARC. You can call it whatever you want. They just happen to change the name. But now we don't have any recourse, any chance of changing our mind as a board.
Right.
do parents have the ability to opt out of MCAS 2.9675?
You know, Tom, that's a great question that the State Department of Education, and we've asked it a couple of times, have not given us a clear answer to. We don't know if there's going to be an opt-out when it comes time for 2017-18. The last couple of years, they've kind of closed their eyes and held their nose for anybody who's opted out. I don't think they'll do that when it comes time for it to really count. But it's a great question. We don't have an answer to that yet.
Okay. I'll yield. Thank you.
Mr. Amico, then Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, Dr. Levine. So we're definitely held harmless for this year. We had to purchase, we would have purchased these Chromebooks, or leased them, I should say, next year anyhow, because everyone's going to be on board taking MCAS 2.0 online. Will we get any data from this, or will this just be you're taking the test, you're not going to see the data, DESE is going to have it, it's just a practice run?
I think we're going to get the data.
Not the first year.
No, it's first year.
Right.
They're still
Okay.
trying to figure that out.
Okay.
They still have a solid answer for us.
Okay, so regardless, if we don't get the data, the way I look at it is it's a practice run. Our children are taking this test in 2017, 2018. We're gonna have to make the investment regardless, whether they take it this year or next year. My only point was the lease is definitely a lot less expensive than a purchase, and we have that lease for 4 years, which probably covers the cost of Chromebook's lifetime, maybe 4 years or so.
Yes, actually, the Chromebook cards have 30 on a card. By the way, these don't include the cards that the mayor has funded at grades 4 and 5, with I think 4 on each card. So this is in addition to that. They would have been $8,800 a card. Is that right? $8,800 a card times 13 would have been a significant. That would have been a significant one-time investment that I wasn't willing to make, because it would have taken all the money that was left in technology.
One more question. Because if we do decide to go 1 year earlier, is there anything coming out of DESE to help us out in a sense? Because if we come out 1 year earlier online, it probably helps them as well. Would they be willing to do anything to help us out with the lease, or?
They haven't been up to this point, and my guess in Vegas would be no. Because every school system is going to be in a position where they're going to have to invest lots of dollars to upgrade their technology, both infrastructure and machinery. I doubt very much if the state's going to come out with any reimbursement.
Thank you.
Mrs. Dunn, then Mr. Olivia.
Where do I begin? So we're not going to get any data. How many hours of the year will our students be taking this exam? I'm full of question already.
I'm figuring that out now, the scheduling, and I'm sure we'll get some results of some sort. We will get some results. I continue to attend meetings, so I will continue to update you, Dr. Levine.
Yeah, the decision hasn't been finally made. They don't know. They haven't made that. They haven't come to that yet about getting the data. As far as the hours are concerned, how many hours of testing in the spring?
It's suggested times, so I will let you know.
Okay. If they were really sincere, I hope Mr. Chester is listening, they should scrap the rating system if they're going to hold us harmless, because it's human nature to want to do better every year. That's what this whole system is designed. We are trying to do better every year, trying to raise the level. So they're going to hold us harmless? So scrap that rating system and start a new system when everything is legitimate. So there's another point that they're not addressing. So we're going to take a test that doesn't count. We're going to take a test we have to pay a lot of money for, that's not going to, potentially may not give us any information to help our students, which is the whole purpose of a test in the first place. Then they're not going to scrap the rate. We'll sit at our rate, our level, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the levels. We'll sit at our level. They're not going to do anything about that. And they haven't figured out what to do for the students who are in high school that are gonna graduate. They haven't figured that part out. And, let's see. Everybody's gonna take the exam on a piece of equipment that the state is mandating, but the state is not going to help with that in any way, shape, or form.
So
Sounds
through the-
beautiful.
Yeah, through the chair. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play?
Exactly, exactly. This is just such a joke, honestly. My next question is, do we have the bandwidth and the capabilities to handle all of our students taking the exam at the same time? Because my understanding was infrastructure is also a problem. You don't just slap a Chromebook in front of a kid and figure we're all set. We've got to fire up all kinds of electricity and, Mr. Haas, what word am I looking for? Thank you. So, we're just gonna go for broke, and I can't wait. Every time they've done this with any type of a board, and the 4 attorneys here can tell you about this, they put the bar exam on a computer, crashed the system, crashed it. The mental health costs alone amongst those people taking the bar exam are unbelievable. Lawsuits are racking up all over the place. So, did Mr. Chester and his minions take a look at the capability of the state of Massachusetts to handle all of this after we all lost internet on Friday because of somebody in France that attacked some building in New Hampshire and I couldn't read Facebook for 6 hours? So, how are we gonna handle that one, Mr. Lincoln?
I don't know how you survived.
It was awful.
Through the chair, if I may.
I know, in all seriousness, but...
The answer is actually yes. The state did ask us whether or not we would have the capability, not only regarding machinery, but also regarding bandwidth. One of the things that the mayor so generously funded was a program of expanding our bandwidth anyway. So we've been in the process since the summer of doing that. We feel that every school will have the capability to handle this test.
Is Mr. Chester going to pay that bill too? Do we owe Comcast for that one?
There are rules.
Oh, man. Because I understand we do need technology, and I understand the needs, that our students have. But to be forced to do this for a test that's basically not going to count because someone in Boston needs to maintain their own personal integrity because they promised somebody that we were going to have a test, no matter what you call it, makes me mad because those are simple questions that I asked. And they haven't got the answers already. So by the time the test rolls out, honestly, I know I'm going to have another list of questions and poke holes in their theories because they're proving that it's not legitimate. If it was a legitimate exercise in advancing the capabilities and the success of our students, they would have thought of all of those things ahead of time. They would have figured out how to get technology in front of every kid in Massachusetts. They would have figured out how to make sure that that test was going to be valid. And they wouldn't be using every public school system in Massachusetts basically as guinea pigs for an experimental test. And this really is experimental because taking a test on a computer is a lot different than taking it on pen and paper. And they should admit what they're doing, and they won't. And to admit what they're doing, they'd have to stop that leveling, and they won't do that either. So I'm glad you did what you had to do. I'm sorry you had to do it. It's just very frustrating. It's always been very frustrating, but I guess what I wanted to do was to point out all the ridiculous parts of this whole exercise. Not on you, it's in Boston.
Thank you, Mr. Olivia.
That, through the chair, Dr. Levine, that 25,000, is that amortized over 4 years, or is it a one-time $25,000?
No, it's over 4 years.
Oh, and
It's 25. It'll be 25,000 a year.
Per year.
Per year? Okay, it's per year.
4 years.
And is there like a bargain purchase price for those Chromebooks at the end of the lease?
I believe what we have at the high school, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a $1 buy. So basically, we're going to give the kids as they walk out the door the Chromebook and let them keep it. If it's still worth keeping,
Sure.
they'll have a decent piece of property.
Okay.
We'll do the same thing here.
I'm gonna go to Mrs. Carpenter, but Mr. Mika, you have one quick question?
No, you can do that and then
Okay.
come back. Thank you.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. A couple of questions. One is about budgetarily, you said you froze. How much did you freeze? And how much are we putting out? And is that gonna put us, are we in a negative in the budget right now? And what is that amount?
We are. So let me talk about FY 2016 first, because I finally do have a number for you. We did wind up in the black, and we wound up in the black of $135,000. And that was due to the work of a lot of people, mostly our staff, who, when I froze the budget last year, did not whine, moan, and complain. They just froze along with us. We were able to recoup a number of dollars because of that. There were some things that we weren't able to do because of that. I believe that we were in negative $1.2 million when I walked in, through a variety of different financial strategies and freezing the budget. We were in the black at the end of the year, $135,000. There was also a $527,000 grant that was unspent. It was actually our new director of special education that caught that, along with our budget director. And we were actually beyond the deadline to spend that money. We were going to lose it. Through the good work of Ruth Groovy and Jared Stanton, and making some phone calls to the state, also with the help of Mike Ingris out of your office, the state is allowing us to keep that money. So what we're going to be able to do with that $527,000, that was special education, by the way, is add it to the 135 that we have, and we're going to be able to defray the cost of 2017 by $650,000. However, we're already in the red in special education about $450,000, and that's with us taking back some students. So I believe that structurally we entered the budget also some hundreds of thousands of dollars in the negative anyway, because we did take into consideration what I hoped was the best case scenario. We think that we're probably, with the offset of the $650,000, still somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million at the end of the year, looking at the budget deficit at the end of the year. I froze $200,000 in technology, knowing that we would be in deficit. And we will be freezing the budget as of November 1st, once again, and trying to recoup the money that we know that we're shy in the budget. And there's a lot of reasons to be shy in the budget. And you know, the mayor has been very generous with us. But there were just some structural things that we couldn't catch up with. We're going to try to catch up with it at the end of this year. And moving forward, hopefully we will have a balanced budget starting July 1st. So my guess is that we're somewhere around $100,000 to $1 million in the negative. About half of that is special education. Seems like we will always be in the negative in special education. The governor did just pass for the first time and made it legal for special education to run a separate pot of money through the budget. It cannot be any more than 2% of the budget that you have, but it's a pot of money that for now we can budget, assuming that we may be in deficit in special education. So I'm going to work with the mayor and the school committee on making some recommendations there as we get into the budget season. We've never been able to do that before. It's been actually illegal to presuppose that somebody would become special educations, marked for special education. We can do that now. So since we've been running a deficit every year in special education, it might be an efficient way to budget by taking a look at what the average has been over the last 5 years, and put away a certain amount of money from our budget that might help defray the cost of special education as we continue to be in the negative. But that's the answer to your question.
Okay, so out of all of the things you just threw out, I'm gonna start with the $527,000 grant that we didn't use. What was that in for, and how are we able to use a $527,000 grant in special ed, and we're gonna use it for the technology for the MCAS? Is that correct?
No.
Is that what you said?
No, to clarify, the $527,000
Yeah,
needs to go back to the state because we didn't spend it on time.
yeah.
It's going to come back to us,
Mhm.
and that money will go to defray the cost of the budgetary deficit that we have presently.
Okay. What was that grant in for?
It was special education, Jared.
240 IDEA grant.
The IDEA grant. And we just didn't know it was there?
Oh no, we knew it was there. In the transition, it just didn't get spent the way it was supposed to get spent down. There's a monetary strategy that you need to use in order to offset spending in your budget. You need to move it out of one grant and into your operations. That was never done. Through nobody's fault at this table.
Was that number different? Was any of that IDA money spent, or was that the total amount?
Jared, was any of the money spent from that grant?
Yes, I want to say about $1 million. So what happens is this money we identified, right away when I came in. We knew about it beforehand. This money needs to be encumbered before April. If it's not encumbered, you can't use that money. You have to go. It goes back to the state, and then you have to reapply for it. We were assured that we would get this money. Just a clarification, it's $528,000. So
We'll talk about that tomorrow.
So that money will be coming back to the state. It will be coming back to the district. We'll offset tuitions and deficits in the general fund this year in special education. If then that puts us in the black in special education, the money left over in special ed will then go and offset other things that are in the negative.
In special ed?
Or salaries. It can be used for anything if it's in the general fund.
Did we already send that grant money back?
Yes, we did.
And when are we expecting it to come back?
So it was a $1.7 million grant initially, and then the 520 was found. It's for salaries and tuitions. It's supposed to be coming back, and it doesn't impact FY17 IDA grant. So we have the 1.763 that's coming in for this year, FY17. So it should be coming back probably, I would say, within a month.
By the way, Brandy, what else added to the budget deficit this year of over $250,000 was the kindergarten grants drying up without notice. So the choice was, as you know, to either keep our kindergarten aides on or not, or lay them off. And we chose to keep them on and assume that in the budget. So that's...
Right, absolutely we did. So I do recall the discussion about freezing the $200,000 in technology. Is that the amount of money that we are using for, because I'm not sure if I was adding up things as the numbers were going around, but it was 8,800. Did I times it by 13 cards? It was like 115,000. Is that?
That's if we were to purchase.
Okay, we're not.
We're not. We were only using $25,000 out of that $200,000, and that's for the rental.
If the
For
rental
lease.
is how
I'm sorry, the
many?
lease. That's all of them.
That's all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where I kind of lost track because
Yeah.
there was a lot of numbers going around. Okay, so that's for all of them. Can we get a quarterly report too, and then can we get some updates about when you get that grant money back so we can just stay on top? Because right now, what I'm hearing is we're about 800 to $1 million short, so we just want to stay on top of that so that we can continue to try to make sure that we're not short at the end of the year and wouldn't want to have to go to the city council for a supplemental. And that's not something that I think that any of us have ever had to do before, nor would I be in favor of it. But with, some things do happen, but I'm definitely not in favor of it. Off of the subject of the budget, one of my other questions is, At the time we discussed this last year, very passionate, heated topic, so I appreciate the update coming back to us, even if we have no say in it. As you can see, the conversation has gone on longer than anything else in this meeting. And it is something that we all do get asked about. What test is my child taking this year? What's happening? I heard we weren't taking, I heard we are. You know, we give them an answer and we tell them we had no choice. But the science piece was not complete. I remember when we had talked about it, and that was one of the factors why I wasn't on board. Is that something that they've updated now? Do they have their science piece?
Actually, the science piece in grades 5 through 8 will be paper-based. They're not ready for computers and science.
There you go. We get the computers and then we don't
Standards,
need
because
them.
of the new standards.
So we're investing in the cards and so they can go online and take the test, and then they need to put that aside and go back to the paper for the science. Was there another piece as well that wasn't complete? Was it just science?
High school.
Well, I know, yeah, the high school's still doing that. So half is on the...
Everybody else will be taking the computer-based, but science is exempt at the middle school, at the 5th and 8th grade.
I'd like to point out that it's actually called the Science and Technology exam.
No,
But it's on paper. Are we gonna use mechanical pencils?
I think we're gonna need medication for this meeting.
You are, oh my God. Oh.
Mrs. Carpenter, still on the floor?
We don't need as much bandwidth now, right? We're gonna take half of it on.
That's right, okay, so, you know, you
No,
shut this school off
I
for
think
5 days.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As much disdain as this committee has expressed for these standardized tests in the last few years, I absolutely think and agree with the superintendent to go online this year, give our kids, not only our kids a crack at this test, even though I don't agree with the test. We live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the United States of America, and both of those, our state and federal government, have departments of education. And in our governmental structure, we adhere to and abide by their requirements so long as we take their money. And that's what we're compelled to do, and that's what we do. And certainly not Dr. Levine's fault, although you're perhaps getting the brunt of some of these comments tonight. Thank you. I agree with taking the test online this year. Not only does it give our students an opportunity to take the test with a free crack, and it's certainly disappointing that we're not going to get the results, because that's the purpose of a test, is to evaluate and to structure curriculum so that our students can better learn the subject matter, and tests and evaluations are supposed to do that. But it also gives our staff in the classroom and our staff outside of the classroom an opportunity to evaluate how the test experience was for our students, if we need to work on any technology pieces or any proctoring pieces. So I'll leave that alone. If we don't like the test, I think it's, Ms. Dunn mentioned coming out of Boston. I think that this test is coming substantially from substantially south of Boston in a district between Maryland and Virginia. But in any event, my question to you through the chair to Dr. Levine, and welcome Ms. Gruby, our special education director, is here as well. Whoever is able to answer this question, what accommodations, if any, are going to be allowed for students on IEPs for MCAS 2.0 online?
Kara? Kara has the accommodation. She's the MCAS student.
I can do a presentation on this further, but there are designated features and then there's universal features. So we're actually rolling this out, and I will share this in our professional development day on November 8th. So there are going to be different features, obviously, for students that have to be written into their IEP, and they're called designated features. And then there's going to be universal features that all students can utilize on their Chromebook. And I'm learning more about that as well. So I will continue to update you.
So if I may, through the chair, if we can, at a future meeting after the professional development takes place, perhaps get an update on what accommodations will be available to students on IEPs, obviously in a general sense, so that we can make that information available to staff members and parents and students so that they're aware that because I think in the initial park assessment, there were no accommodations afforded to students on IEP. So I'm at least happy to hear that the MCAS 2.0 version of this standardized test will allow for some accommodation.
Thank you. I think everybody's spoken, but Mr. Amico, Mr. Rosano, a quick question.
Thank you.
Mr. Amico.
Through the chair of the committee, I'm not defending standardized testing by any means, but it's going to be here online in 2017, 2018, and I do agree with Dr. Levine and I almost called you Dr. Hockman, Mr. Hockman.
We do have doctors. Yeah, I do.
Beverly's a doctor. Dr. Dunn.
So,
Dr. Dr. Fine. Dr. Fine.
Thank you. But in fairness to the students and the teachers, I've piloted the park test a few years ago, and there are some things that you have to do before the real test is it. You have to know the features, especially math. Using the computer, there are a lot of different functions and features that kids have to have practice on, and I just think it gives us an extra year to work out those kinks. Not only get our bandwidth up, to make sure everything's running, because things go wrong. And when we did pilot, some things went wrong, but we knew it was during a pilot of the actual test. It wasn't game day. I would rather make the mistake in practice than on game day. So we're going to have to take this. Kids are going to have to take this test regardless. And it's going to happen in 2017, 2018. And if it's a $25,000 investment that gets us rolling into it, gives our teachers, our students, the practice, the instruction, the training, I don't see how that's a bad thing. I just don't.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Rosano.
Thank you. One of my questions was actually by Mr. Hoffman, so that only leaves me with two. I don't disagree with Mr. Amico or Mr. Hoffman that practice always makes perfect. The problem is the test. It's not practice. I think we all are in agreement that it's great for somebody to get the dexterity and figure out how to use the computer the right way to take the test. That's not where the argument's really lying for anybody. And to Dr. Levine, I hope you know that all of our questions aren't directed towards you. It has really nothing to do with you. You're between a rock and a hard place. You're being mandated to implement a test that A, nobody asked for, B, nobody wants, but you're trying to do it the best way you can. So I applaud you for taking the initiative to take a test that is being jammed down our throat and making it at least as appetizing as possible. So, thank you. The other question I have is, can you just find out if parents can opt out? That'd be the only question I have. But thank you. Sure.
Mrs. Carpenter, briefly.
Yes. Two things. One is in regards to the test and our opinions and whether or not we have a choice. I just want to applaud the fact that we did hold off for so long because we were right. It kept changing. And we didn't put our kids through that year after. We let them be steady and level, and when we have to change, we're changing now. And that's basically, what this board did. In regards to the data, I know you said we're not going to get any data. Does that mean we may? Do you know if the parents, if we're going to get the results in the mail, like the
Next year?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I'll find out for you.
Yeah. If they'll find out how their child did, even though it doesn't count, we'd like to see how they did. So that would just be my.
That shows whether they release it or not.
Yeah. So that's that.
Thank you. Dr. Dunn, briefly.
I did want to just say, my comments were definitely not directed at you, Dr. Levine, because, my frustration has always been with the Department of Education and just the crazy nature that they can back you into a corner, which basically, I do want to compliment you because you have been backed into a corner, we all have, and you took care of it. On the issue of the opting out though, when you find out whether parents can opt out or not, there was a penalty attached to opting out. Several schools ended up falling levels. Now, of course, they tell us they're not going to make us go through the levels, but I'm sure they'll think of some other torture. And if you can find out if there is any penalty attached, so the parents can make an honest and a knowing decision for their students, because in one case, I do know a parent was very upset because they had allowed their student to opt out and then realized that their school had, the level had fallen. And that parent said if they had ever known that, they would never have opted out. So they just need to have that information.
And through the chair, Mr. Mayor, I think that number is 95%. I think they have to have a 95% participation rate.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and it wasn't in Peabody. It was not in Peabody. It was something that I had read.
We'll find that one for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Olympio?
Just, yeah, real quick, Jared, Ruth, great job, $528,000. I mean, that's like finding change in the couch. I mean, no, but all kidding aside, that's really great job. I mean, that's really great. Thank you.
Yeah, that is huge.
Yeah.
I covered that with cushions, but.
Great. Okay, so now we'll go to written communications. We actually don't have any today. We'll move on to subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee, Mr. Huckman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Education Subcommittee's curriculum and instruction subgroup of that had an opportunity to meet last night. We talked about the science adoption and piloting with the McGraw-Hill presentation that will take place tonight. We also talked about the fact that that Google Classrooms for the science department have been set up. And that they're being used for constant communication and feedback between staff members and students. There's continuous professional development that's taking place, and I know Ms. Mertag does have a schedule with her. Perhaps we can receive that at a future school committee meeting. That is being utilized for the new science and technology, not only curriculum adoption, but textbook adoption. The Peabody Veterans Memorial High School Science presentation will take place at our next regular school committee meeting, which is on November 9th. And which was one thing that was particularly exciting about our meeting last night was Ms. Mertag provided us with the technology plan that I know that many people in this school department and city have been working on for I think over a year and a half, maybe 2 years. It is finally being implemented. They're working towards creating digital literacy curriculum with benchmarks at each grade level. And I believe if that plan is not already on our website, it will be within the next week or two. So I was very excited to see that. We do have a meeting scheduled on November 15th at 6 p.m. It'll be here at the Higgins. Within the same education subcommittee, the special education subcommittee will be scheduling a meeting in the near future, primarily to discuss the 2 reports that we received tonight in our packets. I'd also like to tell everyone out there in the viewing public and everybody here that the special education PAC will be hosting a free workshop on basic rights, which is a statutory requirement that our district provide, and it will take place on November 15th at 7 p.m. here at the Higgins. If there are any questions regarding that, please reach out to our Special Education Director, Ruth Gruby, or anyone in leadership over at the Special Education PAC, Yvonne Roussard, or Ms. Simonal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Finance, Mrs. Carpenter?
Right now, we are still in active negotiations with AFSCME. Nothing else to report.
Thank you. School safety?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Athletics and wellness, Mr. President?
Nothing to report at this time.
Quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Nothing to report at the moment.
Okay. Liaison to the City Council Advisory Boards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Parent Advisory Board Subcommittee met last night here at the Higgins and had a good representation from each of the schools. The things that were worked on were a model letter that is actually being edited It will go to each of the schools and serve to introduce parents to their specific parent advisory board representative, and it tells a little bit about what the parent advisory board does. And it will provide contact information so that members of each school family will know who to contact for parent advisory board information. We also answered a question that several of the members had regarding mulch at the schools. There was a question about the mulch for playgrounds as well as for the front of the schools, and by our answer, thank you, Mr. Stanton, it was that each school needs to request what they need, put it into their budget, and that they will then be able to get it next year. They're all set this year. They are all set. Another question that came up was regarding PTO insurance. That was something new, and I have a whole list of questions for you, Dr. Levine, about the need for that. It was a lengthy discussion about it, and the members present, because every parent advisory board member is a member of their respective PTO, and they were talking about the difficulties of paying for that insurance every year, and also keeping up with their 501c3 statuses. So we really want to be able to get, find out where the requirement came from, how it was implemented, and what could be done to alleviate that pressure on the PTOs. Let's see. Regarding school communications, there was a discussion about school safety and about communications with the parents. We discussed what happens in a lockdown. And one of the issues that came up was that some teachers use a feature called Remind, and that others use the Google Classroom. And the members were asking whether there is any type of policy for a standardized response that would be coming out from the teachers. Our response to the members was that the actual notifications in case of a lockdown, in case of any type of a situation, will be coming from the superintendent's office. We also had parents ask about coming into the system. This was interesting. A lot of us take for granted policies and procedures that go along in the schools, especially as you have your children go through the school system. But for incoming parents, it's a whole new world. And there was a recommendation that there should probably be a safety talk at the very beginning of the school year, especially for like kindergarten or first grade parents, to understand what is a lockdown. And it was a very good point, because parents are all familiar with fire drills because they've already been through school. But for most of the parents, there was no such thing as a lockdown when they were in school. We're familiar with it because we've been dealing with it for many years, but new incoming parents didn't necessarily know what it was, what it entailed, and it's definitely something frightening, and it's something that they would like to know about. So it was a recommendation to bring that to you to make sure that there is some type of a baseline presentation to all parents at the very beginning of the school year. It may not even be too late to do it now, so that they understand exactly what our school policies are. If a school was evacuated, how would you find out where to pick up your child, that type of thing. And it was a good discussion. It was very interesting. Another issue that came up is the behavior of students in school, and a concern of the balance between students who may be disruptive and the students who aren't disruptive, and how to make that situation more palatable to people on both sides of the equation in that type of a situation. And then there was the main purpose of our meeting, the actual agenda item was concerning confidentiality agreements. And this was an issue that had come up a couple of years ago with Parent Advisory Board, and we're going to address it. There is presently no policy in place requiring parents who volunteer in and amongst the office or classrooms regarding confidentiality. And the Parent Advisory Board members actually requested that we have a policy and perhaps have some type of a written agreement when someone is volunteering on a very consistent basis, that if they are going to be present when something may occur in the school that they really shouldn't speak about outside, that they understand the serious nature of that, and that they not be put into that position of knowing anything from a call from a parent, if a volunteer happens to be answering the phone and someone calls in about an illness that the child is facing. you don't want to have anybody talking about that. You know, to stress the confidentiality of much of what goes on in the schools. We know the employees know this and that they all have something that they have to sign, but there was nothing in place for volunteers, and it sounds like a good recommendation. So at the end of this report, I'll make a motion to ask that that be put into the Quality and Standards Subcommittee so that we could draft a policy on that. And one of the other things is, and this is kind of in line with the fact that a letter is going to go out, and Dr. Levine had looked at the letter. We'll give you the final copy. We are editing it. And trying to make sure that parents are aware of meetings, are aware of what's going on in the schools. And they were talking about the difficulty that right now, you know, we're actually required to post meeting notices on a bulletin board in the school. And we recommended that the Parent Advisory Board mission and guidelines be posted on the parent bulletin board. And it was interesting to hear the parents talk about how few parents actually go into the building, because when they're picking up their children, they're outside, or their child may be on a bus. So there is not that frequent interaction in the building as there was years ago. So they were talking about different ideas on how to make sure that parents know about different activities. It was a wide-ranging discussion. And they talked about distribution lists as well, so that people could sign up for emails. Let's see, one other thing. There was a discussion about Corey checks versus SORI checks, and it was recommended after discussion that when parents are volunteers as chaperones on a trip, that they pair up, and that instead of having 4 children go with Dr. Levine, 4 children go with Ms. Murtagh, that 8 children will go with Dr. Levine and Ms. Murtagh. And that may help alleviate any fears parents have of an adult being alone with children. And that might be a good solution and a good recommendation. So the next meeting will be the 21st. We haven't chosen a location yet. We really love the Higgins, but we're trying to move around in the different schools. And I would like to make a motion that the issue of confidentiality agreements with specified volunteers be referred to the Subcommittee on Quality and Standards. So moved.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Lupio. On the motion, Mrs. Cochran.
Thank you. Mrs. Dunn, quite a few years back when I was on the this same issue had come up about confidentiality with volunteers in the buildings. We did create a form, and I have a feeling maybe it's just gotten lost along the way. Some of the principals that have been here a little bit longer may still be familiar with it, but like almost every issue in PAP, everything just comes back around again. I have no problem moving your motion forward to go into quality and standards, but if you give me a little bit of time, I can probably find that form. But this did come up. We do have a form. It was in place. It was being used. I don't know why it isn't any longer, but I can pass that along to you as soon as I find it. I don't know if we ever actually put it in our policy book, or we just used it as a procedure in each building. So I can do that for you, and then I have something else after this motion goes through, just to comment on another issue that you talked about.
So we have the motion. Did you want to respond, Mrs. Dunn?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Thank you. That would be really helpful. And I think that using that form and actually putting a policy, because there isn't anything in the policy manual, that's why we thought we were creating it anew. Just putting a policy to implement that form would be perfect.
Great. We have Mr. Amico?
No. So we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, we have a motion on the floor for approval. It's been seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hockman?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympia?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Mrs. Cochran.
And then on the Corey and the SORI, what was the question on that?
A couple of parents it had come up at a PTO meeting about whether our volunteers and chaperones on school field trips they all have to fill out a query, but there was a question of whether they should be filling out a SORI as well. And through the discussion, everyone felt that that was just, A, extremely expensive, B, that we know that, that people are chosen for their ability to serve, as a chaperone for the child and the other classmates, that it is ultimately always up to the discretion of the principal, and that it was just totally, out of character, that the Corey review was sufficient for volunteers on those specific, those specific duties. Working in a dance as a chaperone, being a chaperone on a field trip, all of those things, people are covered by that Corey check.
So the idea of the two parents together was just an added instead of the story. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just through the chair, Mrs. Dunn, would you send me the list of recommendations that came out of PAP?
Yes, I have a whole list of them. And one other thing that I would like to say is, and it does go back to, the discussion about PTO insurance and about the 501c3 corporations, was that I actually want to publicly thank Mr. Olympio, because he has already helped many of the schools with some of their paperwork, and he had great insight into this. So we were already tapping him to be a speaker. He'll learn.
Great. Items for the next agenda can be handled in the regular course. Mr. Hartman?
It's not an next agenda item, it's something I omitted from my education report, if I may supplement it. If we can have the... If we can have the, if I can ask the administration to facilitate a conversation between the staff member that runs the planetarium at the high school and the principals of the elementary schools, so that we can start utilizing the planetarium at the elementary level for field trips, hopefully in the spring.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Prior to this evening's regular school committee meeting, we did, as a group, meet an executive session. There were a couple of items that came from that. I'd like to turn over to you, Mrs. Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say to Dr. Levine that we as a board appreciate you very much. You have done a wonderful job for us as the interim superintendent. I have the utmost respect for you, and I think I speak for everyone here. You've helped move this district forward, and I can't thank you enough for that. But with that being said, although your time is not up yet, we as a board do have to make a plan about our next superintendent. And I think that moving forward, I need to make a motion to open up the superintendent search.
Second. Okay. Heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Rossignol. On the motion, Mr. Hartman?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to Mrs. Carpenter's statements that in our deliberations in terms of this search and what we're moving towards in the future, we did seek an opinion from council as to Dr. Levine's status as an interim superintendent and his status as a retiree as well. And based upon that opinion, the recommendation was that we were to open up a search for the superintendent. So that was part of our analysis in going through this process.
Okay. On the motion, roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Huffman?
Yes.
Mr. Rossignol?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I do have another motion. In discussions and in the past history of some of the board members, the process that we've taken to seek out a new superintendent generally have come in the form of creating a search committee. And I think it would be in the best interest of this committee if we contact the MASC to help us with that. So I'd like to make a motion that we contact MASC to explore retaining their services to conduct a superintendent search.
Second.
Heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Rossignol. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Rossignol?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Thank you. Items for the next agenda, I think, in the regular course of business, and thank you, we covered a lot of ground. Good meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?